Welcome to Corrective Consciousness, episode 161, the podcast where we explore the inanity of pop culture. I'm your host, vysethebold, and this is...
Lotus Prince.
And PyroJackFrost.
So we are here with the OG3 again, and we have another great topic-based episode here for you. This we're going to go based off of some things that we've been discussing in our private life, but we really wanted to talk about some botched ports this time. We talked about some botched launches in particular, but these are just all-around bad ports of games that we wanted to discuss because I've encountered quite a few of these, and a lot of the games on the Switch have been coming up lately.
Yeah.
Wait, games on the Switch? I thought we were talking about shitty pieces of wood that ships can't park at.
From port to port. Yeah. They're bad wharfs in the next episode.
Wharfs.
So is that bad Star Wars the Star Trek characters?
Yeah. Bad ridges on the forehead. But I think this. You brought this up, Pyro, right? Because of an experience that you're having currently.
Yeah, and it's like I say crappy ports, but like I'm playing Bloodstained. Let me start with that, which a lot of people know had the Switch port isn't the best. There's like frame rate problems and crashes and stuff like that. I will say that I originally wanted to wait until this, because they are making a patch for Bloodstained.
Yeah.
For the Switch to make it run better, and I was going to wait for that, but I was like, you know what, I have time. I know that
and you can even put it up with a little bit of what people are complaining about sometimes, right?
Well, yeah, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to be traveling a lot for work because we're doing this professional development that's all week, and it's in Manhattan, so I need to travel a little bit more. So I'm like, you know what, I'll download and I'll play it. It's not as bad as everyone's saying. The crashes are annoying, especially today. I lost granted, it's my fault I didn't save, but I lost like an hour or 2 hours worth of progress, which was kind of annoying because it crashed on me. And this is
Did you get any rare items during that time? That's the big thing with this game.
But it was grinding, so it was like mindless stuff that I had to do again.
That stinks too.
And it's a fun game, so I don't really mind it. But it's just like the crashes are at weird spots. Like I went to the shopkeeper and talked to him, and then it crashed, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me? It's not." And it can be slow. Granted, like when you're fighting, it's not that bad. It's a little bit of a feeling. I don't know if this is supposed to be a little slow or if it's just the frame rate is bad. It's workable, but it is in a way more just annoying that they didn't delay the port until they knew it worked well.
Yeah.
And I think that's like my biggest annoyance. Like I think the same thing was with the new Nier Automata, that the same thing. The PC, I think it was, port was really crappy for that, and I think it was again like a frame rate problem that it just did not run well on PC for one reason or another.
Well, especially with Bloodstained, considering how many years it's been in development.
But that's also
waited this long.
The thing with the games that are on Kickstarter taking so long, it's because a lot of times when a game developer doesn't have the publisher breathing down their backs, they don't really realize. They don't have someone to like kick them and say like, or not kick them, but like tell them like, come on, you got to do this. Like we don't have all the time in the world.
Yeah.
There's nobody forcing like them to speed it up or meet milestones or whatever. So I know exactly what you're thinking, what you're talking about. I have a feeling with Bloodstained they used like unconventional ways to link certain things in the game together. So for instance, in the PC version, there are still points where it crashes as well. So the points where it's crashed for me were actually opening journal entries.
Oh wow.
Before I ever, it happened to me twice, and before I ever did one ever again, I always saved, because a lot of times the journals are right outside of a save point anyway, so I would just save and then go back to it. And believe it or not, ever since I've been doing that, I haven't had a crash. So maybe it has something to do with refreshing, or maybe it hits some kind of buffer, memory buffer, or something
That's
that
what
gets
I'm
reset.
thinking, because like most times that it crashed for me are once I've been doing a lot of stuff before, like go into a save room or something. Um, it's you were saying that they might put things together in a weird way, which also always intrigues me because I know that made sense back in the day when they had a lot less
Yeah.
space, both like memory and hard drive and stuff like that, to actually have all the things they want. So they would have to do workarounds. It surprised me that they still have to do that, and I'm wondering sometimes if it's just like that. Some people who are it's when you're pressed for time, you end up just making workarounds because you're like, you know what, we need to get this out. We're gonna make this work one way or another.
It's kind of funny because they're using a really well-documented engine for this game. It's using Unreal,
Yeah, that's the other thing. Is like,
they shouldn't have any problem.
why is it crashing? Like, I've rarely seen an Unreal game crash. It's probably because again, they found ways to make the Unreal Engine work for them that was not expected in the engine itself.
Yeah, I mean it's a 2D game.
Well, it's two
a 2D,
and a half, like you could say.
yeah. It's a 2.5D game,
It's
but like
2D side scroller, but all the backgrounds and sprites are 3D.
yeah. So I think that even Unity, like when you build a 2D game, like a pixel game, like I think was it Shovel Knight is made using Unity. Even though it's a pixel game, actually everything in there is on 3D models. So it's actually kind of funny.
I've done personal like tutorials on Unity because I've been like working on that a little bit a while ago. I haven't been doing it recently, but Unity used to only be a 3D engine. I mean, sorry, let me phrase that. Unity is a 3D engine, but you used to have workarounds to make it work in 2D. And that's what like Shovel Knight did. But recently, like within the last year, they upgraded the engine so it's a lot easier to make 2D games in Unity.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, so it's like because Unity is a 3D engine, it's always hard to make like 2D sprite based games because you have layers and you have the camera, and it's like, where do we make the camera look, and what layer is everything? It is a
How
little.
How do you make it look like it's a 2D pixel art game?
Yeah.
Well, it stinks because this is a game where there's just like a ton to do in it that's extra stuff.
Yep.
So like having this as a portable game is ideal.
Exactly, and that's why I was getting it on Switch.
Yeah, it's a shame because I initially wanted it on Switch, and then it was ultimately glad that I was locked into the PC port because of the botched port on this one. But apparently they're working at it, so that's also a good thing.
Yeah, there's definitely been at least one email update that said that like we know about the Switch port, like we're gonna try fixing whatever's wrong with it.
At least they're communicating. At least they're not going radio silent and say, and leaving people guessing, that kind of thing. But I'm thinking of some other ports. I'm trying to think of.
So, like, I guess part of the conversation I want to have too is like, was the port for Bloodstained from the same team that did the other? Because I know Nier, they sent it to another team to do the port because they were like, we're making the PS4 and Xbox version, but we don't know I don't know if it's like we don't know the PC well enough or we don't have the manpower to do this port also, so we're going to give it to this other team to do. Do you know if Bloodstained is like, I guess you could say in-house in a way?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Because I think a lot of times, like that's why the ports always end up being shitty because they outsource it to a team that doesn't know the inner workings of the code as well as the main team. So when they're trying to not only understand that code and also try to make that code work for a completely different, like not language, but like a platform in a way, then there's bound to be issues.
Yeah,
actually, semi-related. This is almost like a counterexample of what you're bringing up, but like Dark Souls on PC had Dark Souls 1 had a botched port because the Souls guy was like, Demon's Souls was a PS3 exclusive and still is. Dark Souls, I think, was originally designed to be just for consoles. And then they did a PC port, but he wasn't as comfortable with the PC, and it ended up being a pretty bad port. It's just nobody really talks about that because a fan fixed all the problems and basically made the PC version the definitive version, like, I think within the day. But it was a botched, like, not an ideal port on PC at first.
Yeah, PC ports actually kind of have a long history of this. PC ports can either be the best or the worst port, depending on the concentration of whoever's making it. Like historically, let me see, the Batman Arkham games.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention that. Baka Sensei in the comments mentioned Batman Arkham Knight. That port was so bad they actually took it off of Steam for a while.
It's better now.
Yeah, it's better now, but boy, that was a botch launch.
I'm wondering if it's because, like, when you're working on the PC, I mean, granted, I haven't made games myself, so I don't know what this comes down to. But when you're making a PS4 and Xbox game, like, you know the code, like, you know the system you're working with, and that's the only code that will work with that. But with the PC, you have to worry about what graphics card the person has. You have to worry about what the processor and all these sorts of things that will make it harder to know what the user has, so you have a lot more stuff to worry about. Same with, like, the resolution. It might be different on the computer, whereas if you're playing on the PS4 and 360, it's the same resolution no matter what.
Yeah, so many PC games have, like, like recommended settings on the box. Like, here, you, user, do you know what you have? Figure it out.
Yeah, I think that you're getting at something there. So they I think they came out and said that if you had such and such an amount of memory, like Arkham Knight was going to work fine. And I think they were saying something ridiculous, like at the time this wasn't so common, but like 16 gigs of RAM, which is a lot of RAM even still. But
yeah, that is.
But they were saying, oh, as long as you have that, it should run fine. But like it shouldn't need that because it doesn't need that on the consoles, right? So
yeah.
It's just one of those things.
Actually,
I think
you're
you're right there with the configurations. The configurations are much more numerous.
Yeah, they really are.
Much more numerous.
But no, here's one. I don't know about the Switch version, but the Vita version of The Binding of Isaac didn't do too well because there are. Yeah. Speaking of configurations, this isn't so much a PC thing as it is how many combinations of power-ups you're going to get, because there are all sorts of results you can get when you combine different power-ups in Isaac, and there are like 500 pickups plus, because there's one achievement per pickup. There is an insane amount of combinations you can get that even radically affect how your attacks work, and the Vita wasn't prepared for that. Again, the Switch version might work better. I don't know how the PS4 and Switch versions are, but Vita was not as good for Isaac as it was expected to be.
Yeah, that one's a big shame, because that could potentially be
great to be portable.
Yeah, that could be a really. In fact, the Switch version is fantastic, I would say.
Okay.
In fact, the Switch version of that one, probably the only downside is the quick reload key, or the quick
the reset your whole run key. That honestly is a deal breaker for me, but like the game runs well.
Yeah, I mean you could still quit via menus, and that kind of thing, but that's the only downside to that port. Everything else is good. It runs fine. But it's a real shame to the people that like really mainly played on the Vita, and then all of a sudden just couldn't get any updates, because the damn thing
there are
wouldn't run on there.
So many achievements you can get, and so it's a damn shame to be like, yeah, no, we're stopping this project. Like, that's why I'm kind of scared to start like Gungeon until the updates completely finish, because
it's done. It's that game's a complete game now.
Okay, because I was gonna say, like, am I gonna play a version that I'm gonna have to abandon? Like, I hope not.
No, they have said multiple times this is like, other than maybe minor bug fixes, there's not going to be any more content. Okay. Of course, companies have said stuff like that in the past, but I don't think Devolver. Devolver has really good will with their fan base.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're gonna ruin that anytime soon. So if they're going to make another Gungeon game, it
well,
would
they
be
did. It
just
was
like
Enter the Gun. It was Enter the Gun Dungeon.
No, but like they'll come. My point is they'll come out with a sequel or
It'll just
something
be a
similar.
new game.
Yeah, exactly. Rather than coming out with content, because they really put in so much. This game is huge now. Like there's so much to do in it.
Well, it's like Isaac. When it came out, you're like, this is a pretty big game. But if you look at Rebirth and Afterbirth Plus, like, holy shit, like, it's daunting.
And there's still more on the way.
Yeah. I can't even believe that.
Yeah, but
although, honestly though, what's on the way, from what I've heard, is like a mod that's like being made official. It's like, all right.
Yeah, but apparently it's that good that it deserves that
I
status.
appreciate that, but it's just like, okay.
But yeah, I mean, let me see here. For a long time, like the Devil May Cry games didn't have good ports on PC as well.
I mean, and that's probably because back then too, like,
yeah,
the PC games were PC games and the console games were console games, and like that was the start. That was when it was like people were just starting. Teams were like developers were just starting to port games to PC, so they were used to the console systems, and I can see those being really, really shitty.
Yeah, honestly, I was more used to, not that it was that common, but I was more used to PC games getting console ports rather than the other way around.
Yeah.
Like Duke Nukem and Doom and stuff like that.
Yeah, and to be fair, a lot of times those turned out okay, but I don't know.
Those were like...
You have Daikatana, which is bad in any form.
Well, yeah, that's not fair. That game is not great. But no, you would have weird quirks though, I had seen a comparison video on stuff like this. Like Doom on the 3DO had like a completely different soundtrack. Duke Nukem 3D on the PS1 had like the soundtrack was all covers of the original tracks. It wasn't completely different, but it was like different, not different tracks, but like different interpretations of the same tracks. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, one that I encountered recently, and my experience with this game was mostly good, but mostly because it was just a good game to begin with. But I had complained about this to you, Lotus, I think. I played Sexy Brutale on the Switch.
Yeah.
And most indie games are indistinguishable from port to port, because most of them are simple enough where it doesn't tax the hardware too bad. Like, in my experience, like, I buy a lot of my games on Switch, and I can't notice the difference. Like, if I'm going to play, like, Guacamelee, why not play it on the Switch? You know what I mean? Like, I don't think most major indie games, I'm like, most of the time, they're really good. You know, for AAA titles, that's something different. You know, some of those ports are really good. Like, Mortal Kombat is surprisingly good on the Switch, but it has some things that are downscaled, like noticeably, but it plays really well.
Yeah. Well, that's been Nintendo's thing for a while. Like, it wasn't even HD during the PS3 era. The Wii U didn't have the specs of the PS4 and Xbox One, and now the Switch still doesn't do 1080 as far as I know.
It does 1080.
It does do 1080?
Yeah, it does 1080 in docked mode.
Okay, because I heard Breath of the Wild went up to like something weird, like 960 or something.
Yeah, that's where it goes up to for that game in particular.
Okay,
but it's optimized for that resolution to make it look the best.
Okay.
But for Sexy Brutale, in particular, where there's a lot of lighting effects in the foyer or the foyer.
Excuse you. Yeah.
Say it correctly.
In the foyer, actually both are correct. One is just the English version, but
of course.
Just like Tarjay.
Yeah.
Is the English version.
Yeah, but in the Sexy Brutale, it really chugs when there's a lot of lighting things
Yeah,
going
and the
on.
Sexy Brutale, we're not talking Doom 2016 here.
No.
This is not going to melt your system.
And that's actually part of my point, is Doom 2016 runs really freaking well on the Switch, and it really shouldn't. And that's a beautiful game. They did some really good programming work to get that game to work well on that system, but for some reason the Sexy Brutale is an unoptimized port, and I was disappointed in that. Like, if I could go back, I would play it on the PC, because I don't want hitches like that while I'm playing, especially like a dramatic game like that. Like, there's murders happening on screen and things that surprise you and stuff like that. I want it to be, flawless in that regard. Especially, in a story-based game like that. And I loved that game. So, I mean, luckily, my experience overall was so great that it didn't matter. But if I'm going to replay this game, I'm not going to play the Switch version, because it wasn't the ideal way to play it. It disappointed me that the frame rate was that bad.
Yeah.
It shouldn't have been that bad.
You know what? Here's something. It's not frame rate, but do you remember the original Bayonetta? That came out on the 360 and the PS3, and the PS3 is like, people were talking about how poor the port was. Now, the gameplay was actually fine, but there were loading screens aplenty. Even when you would pick up an item, it does the Devil May Cry thing, where the item goes, and then you pick it up, it like zooms in on the screen.
Yeah.
With Bayonetta, there would be like a little loading, okay, we're done, like, for even that stuff, because picking up items is like a bit of a flourish in that game. The PS3 is like the worst way to play the game.
There's lots of games like that where the loading times are horrible.
Yep. And this was largely because I believe Blu-ray technology for video games was pretty new. People were still more comfortable handling DVDs.
I think it was more the cell processor, believe it or not.
That's
Had foreign architecture to a lot of people.
Yeah, it was hard. It was actually really hard for people to develop on. Like, the idea behind the cell architecture was like really cool, but a lot of people, if like they didn't understand, like I don't want to say didn't understand it, because I'm downplaying like their knowledge, but if they weren't used to programming on it, it was pretty hard to do, especially if
that's the case for a lot of Nintendo systems, right? The Wii and the Wii U, it's like, what do I do with this fucking tablet?
Yeah, the Switch actually runs off of a similar architecture as the PS4 and the Xbox One.
The Switch uses Android architecture.
Yeah. It uses what is it? An NVIDIA. Uses an NVIDIA graphics card. Right?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. It uses the same NVIDIA graphics card that is used in the NVIDIA Shield currently.
Okay.
So, and that runs Android. But I think most of the... I think at least one of the consoles, the PS4 or Xbox One, has an NVIDIA graphics card in it. So either way, all three systems are based off PowerPC architecture now. So it's much easier to program a port of any of those things.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, like, Bayonetta was designed for the 360, ran in a mediocre fashion on the PS3, but then everything else was ported to, worked out pretty great. Like, it's on Steam now, I believe. It went to the Wii U, and people were like,
Switch.
oh, I don't know, the Wii U, but it ran great on the Wii U. And yeah, now it's on the Switch as well.
And it's really good on the Switch. Probably its best version is the Switch version. So, yeah. I mean, you also have a game like, what was their other game?
Bayonetta 2.
Thanks. Vanquish.
Vanquish ran okay anyway, didn't it? But now it's like better on PC.
The PC version is beautiful. It's like really, really nice.
Yeah, but
I didn't realize that. I think I played it on
Vanquish
360. Release. I didn't realize that the PC one was so good.
Yeah,
well, it's kind of like it's optimized. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of other bad ports. I remember back in the day, this mattered even more because like systems were so you basically needed to program like 3 different games, for 3 different systems.
Doom
So
SNES.
yeah, exactly. That game was not where it needed to be.
It's a bad day where Doom 32X is arguably the better version.
Yeah, and even that's not the best. I mean, if you're gonna go for a console version of that, PS1, man, PS1 is a really
Yeah,
good
you
version
could
of
stop
that
at PS1
from back
or
then.
3DO for the sheer curiosity of that like completely different soundtrack.
Yeah, it was really atmospheric and CD quality, right? It was
Something
wasn't
like
that?
that, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, because I forgot exactly what the description was for this, but in this version comparison video I was watching, someone had said like the guy who was gonna like put Doom on the 3DO apparently like wasn't so hot with the programming and like had to like rush things to get it out on time. But apparently he was a talented musician and like just did the soundtrack himself with like guitars and stuff like that. So it's
Wow.
so like it's not any of the Doom tracks you recognize, but when you hear it, you're like, I could see this being in a Doom game.
Yeah.
It's
Let me
it's
see.
kind of like Sigil. That's definitely not Doom music, but like if it were released in the '90s, you'd be like, "Yep, Doom music for sure." Like it sounds like it could be Doom music.
So, when I'm thinking of this, like, I'm thinking like, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles like Tournament Fighters. There's 3 different versions of that. Four
Oh
different
yeah,
versions actually.
are those even ports though? The Sega version is completely different.
Um, it may as well be a port, right? I mean,
No, the Sega version is not the same game as the Super Nintendo version at all. I don't know anything about the NES version, but the Sega and the Super Nintendo it's like saying Aladdin on the Genesis and SNES are ports. They are not.
it's made by the same people though.
That is true, but they are almost completely different character roster, different aesthetic, different levels.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one, I guess.
Like
Maybe.
on the SNES, it's like the tournament is the plot. It's like Street Fighter, like it really is an actual fighter tournament, or like Tekken. In Turtles, like you're in the tournament for winning the cash prize at the end. But in the Sega version, various heroes have been captured and replaced by clones. So if you ever play like Leonardo versus Leonardo, it's Leo and clone Leo, and they're gray. It's weird, and you can play as April in this game and not in SNES. It's like, what is happening? It's crazy.
Well, it's actually
Krang
kind of
is
funny.
a fighter as an NPC.
Some of the the way computer gaming was before, graphics cards were really a big thing. Actually, a lot of the consoles ran games a lot better than PCs at the time, especially in the DOS days. So there are some really funky ports of like NES games to DOS. Like there's a Mega Man, a couple Mega Man games.
Yeah, well, those are unique, but yeah, those aren't like the games you recognize, but on DOS, but they still run like shit.
I recently saw a Digital Foundry one, which Digital Foundry is a great resource for this kind of thing for current games, and every once in a while they do like a classic one. And they'll like analyze the frame rate of each versions and each of the versions and that kind of thing, and guide you to the best ones and why and all that kind of stuff. But they went over like different versions of the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game, and if you thought the NES one was kind of a crummy game,
I didn't
which
even know there were other
is.
versions.
Oh, there's a DOS version that is unplayable. It has a jump in it that you can't get past.
Oh wow!
Wait, is this like in the Angry Video Game Nerd video where you just walk over the jump? It's a short jump.
So no, there is a different jump in this game that it is not optimized for the way that you jump in that game and move, and you cannot get past it unless you cheat.
That sucks.
It like clearly wasn't tested.
You know what that reminds me of? This isn't fair. This isn't a botched port. But I've brought this up before. The PC version of Call of Cthulhu Dark Corners of the Earth. Now, the game is fine, as far as I know. But it does not take very kindly to modern PCs. And it wasn't designed for them, so fair enough. But like your run speed is a bit reduced, which you might not notice until the ending escape sequence where you have to get out in time. But if you're too slow in certain areas, then it'll just be like, you lose, and like rocks fall on you. So like there are various like invisible checkpoints where you should get to this room by now, and you should get to this room by now. And like even on GOG, the GOG people themselves just refer you to a fan-made patch that increases your run speed. Like I myself had to like, I didn't know about the patch at the time, or I couldn't get it to work or whatever. I actually was able to escape, but I like looked silly while doing it. I like bunny hopped the entire way through, not sure if that would actually increase my speed, and I guess it did, just enough. But that was, and this is like literally the last thing you do in the game. So I was like, do not tell me that this is my game. Yeah, it's not like, oh man, I can't beat level 3. Like, the last thing in the game, like, don't do this to me. It'd be so rough.
Yeah, here's another one. This is a more recent one. Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1 and 2 for PC was botched really, really badly. Yeah, it was clearly made, like, it was a hasty port.
Which I feel like a lot of ports are.
Yeah, but this one was put out basically to kind of drive hype for whatever Marvel movie was out at the time.
Right.
Yeah.
In 2016, it was probably Avengers. It was probably Infinity War at the time. I'm guessing, but anyway, it just. It looks like they pieced it together really poorly, and it just didn't work well. And this was a game that had been made for the 360. It shouldn't have been hard, and to port it to the PC. But apparently, just very little care was put in to both of these. I have them, but they are now delisted. If there's a game with a license that you have any interest at all, definitely buy it.
Yeah, Lego
before it
Hobbit,
gets
Lego
delisted.
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
exactly.
you gotta pick up the console versions, which aren't hard to find, but now you have
Eventually
to pick them
it
up.
will be. Yeah.
Actually, speaking of design for the 360, like, so many games that came out on the PS3 and 360 and also had a Wii version, and the Wii is not in HD, so there's like very obvious graphical downgrades. I don't mean it's not
Like
in
the Call of
HD.
Duty
I mean
games.
it looks like shit.
The Call of Duty games.
My favorite
Wii.
was Spider-Man 3. Like I think it was 3. Like my brother had it, and you're just swinging around New York City, and it looks pretty gorgeous in Spider-Man 2, which was designed for the GameCube, and maybe PS2. I don't remember. But Spider-Man 3 though, those buildings just looked like gray rectangles. It was like the weakest. It was so. It looked like, like when a computer programmer is showing you the wireframes. This is what I have for my buildings. I can't wait till they're finished.
It's like
it
it's the
so
prototype.
bad. Yeah, it looked kind of like I made a playable version. Like it looked so bad.
Yeah, that's a really big shame on those. Wow. There's countless bad ports on the Wii, just like Jank City.
Yeah, and but I want to play those games that everyone else is playing too. But like the Wii wasn't HD. There's gonna be at least presentation problems on these things.
At least with certain games, they kind of worked around it. Like with Ghostbusters, they kind of made all the characters look like the real Ghostbusters, like from the cartoon.
Oh yeah, that's clever.
Rather than try to make them like look like they're. In fact, I think it's a brand new game that they made just for the Wii, just to avoid that problem. The characters look like that, and I think they have different levels and stuff.
No,
yeah.
and that's really damn annoying too, because sometimes stuff like that happens where it's literally a different game, but the box art is exactly the same. So you're like, oh, I'm getting the Wii version of this game, and you're really not. I mean, on one hand, it's kind of cool. You have a unique product, but on the other hand, you're not getting what you really thought you were getting.
Yeah. Let me see what else I can think of.
And the Wii also had a really shitty version of Dead Rising. Because I mean the whole appeal of Dead Rising is like a million zombies on your screen at once. Dead Rising was a really early 360 game, so it was like, look at what we can do. Look at how much stuff is on your screen at
but
all
I'm guessing
at once.
the port couldn't handle that many zombies. So there's like
not even close.
Three zombies.
It was sparse in comparison. It's kind of like PS2 Resident Evil 4. They couldn't handle so many zombies on screen at once. So you're like, well, all right. So like, but Dead Rising is that cranked up many times. So the Wii, like, there's no way you're handling that on the Wii. So it was noticeably downgraded.
Here's another one. Xanadu Next, for a long time we didn't have it in English. Well, we thought we didn't. It apparently had gotten a port, and this was one of like Falcom's like best games that it's ever made. It's like a really great game. You played this one, Pyro, right?
Yep. I played. Yeah. I mean, I played the translated Japanese.
The fan translation.
Fan translated. So I didn't play the shitty port of that.
So, do you know where the shitty port was located?
On what system?
Yeah, so for a long time, the only English version of Xanadu Next that we had was on the Nokia N-Gage.
What?
Nice.
That gets another...
Was it okay, or is it just shitty because it was on the N-Gage?
It was a bad version, and it ran poorly to begin with. No. Like, it was a pared-down version. They cut out content. But it also was very not suitable for the platform. It ran like shit. And I think it was a bad translation on top of that. So just basically, like, you wouldn't even notice it was a good game.
Oh, actually, you know what? That reminds me. Speaking of not bad translation, but what was it, like Ease 8 or something on PC?
Oh, boy, yeah.
That, like, where, like, the text was, like formatted improperly, like it was like looping in places it shouldn't have, like on the next line.
Oh yeah, and the frame rate's actually really bad on that. In fact, like that version of Ease or that installment of Ease is probably the worst. Like in terms of performance of any version of that game or any release of that game, it's a real shame. And NIS, that was the first one that NIS did.
Yeah, and that's a shame because NIS like typically does good stuff.
Yeah, Xseed though had a perfect record when it came to Ys games. I own every recent Ys game going all the way back to like Ark of Nepishtim and Oath of Volgana on PC, like all their Steam releases, because they were a PC primarily a PC company for a long time, and it wasn't until basically the Vita or the PSP where their main development was focused on a console. But this is the only entry in the series that I don't have on PC. I have Ease 8 on the PS4, which is the best version in terms of performance.
What is 8? Is that Lacrimosa or is that 9?
No, it's Lacrimosa of Dana, which is 8. Yeah. Really goofy name. But
I remember we talked about that before. I was like, no, Lacrimosa is a word, and you're like, Lacrimosa. It's like, are you... Come on.
But yeah, that's a big shame. It stinks that I can't even play this game on PC where I want to play it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the funny, the bad part about this whole thing is that you have to research every game before you buy it to find out like where you need to purchase it, and that's a shame. I mean, I guess you don't have that problem if you don't have multiple platforms, but I have them all. So
well, actually, speaking of doing research, you know what that reminds me of? I completely forgot about this. Zone of the Enders HD collection.
Oh boy, yeah.
Because you know PS3 versus versus 360, right? Which one do you get? And like you were like, well, obviously I'll go with the PS3. It's all, you know, it's like the higher quality system if you can program it right for it. But then I'd found some update like, no, apparently it's a really shitty port. You're going to want the 360 version. So you were like, oh, geez. So you like switched over to the 360. But
then it got updated again. And
but then the PS3
version.
Well, apparently, like the company that worked on the PS3 version, Konami, was so dissatisfied with them that like in the patch they like removed that company from the credits and everything. And Konami said, "We'll do this our own damn selves." So like now the PS3 is the best version, but like
and they didn't release that update at all for the 360 version. So
the same shit happened with Silent Hill HD. I mean, not that it was outsourced necessarily, but like
it was.
I mean, this was okay, but this wasn't a port because it was just this is how it was. But like both PS3 and 360 versions were shit, and those are the only versions. They were just both shit. And Konami patched the PS3 version, still not enough to make it great, but it fixed some stuff. And for the 360 version, they just didn't. They just straight up offered refunds to those who wanted them. That's bad news.
And I think in both versions of the Zone of the Enders one, they didn't even bother fixing the first game at all. They only fixed the performance of the second game, which
I don't know what was wrong with the first. Like I Let's Played it. It seemed okay to me. I mean,
maybe it didn't need as much attention.
Yeah, I don't know if there was stuff broken with it. It's funny because speaking of not bothering with the first game, like you can buy Zone of the Enders 2 by itself on PS4, and is it on PC?
Yeah, it's on PC. I think
it is on PC. But just one is just kind of left by the wayside, I guess.
Well, I mean, it is like a 2-hour game. I mean, to be fair,
enough.
It is important in terms of the story of the second one.
That like 2 it's not like another game that they slap the 2 on, like the Ys games where they're not necessarily. Well, no, some of the Ys games are sequels, aren't they? But no, like
they
Final
are,
Fantasy.
But they're very episodic.
They reference each other, but
okay,
because we don't actually know what the timeline that they all take place technically.
Well, that's fair enough, but I guess for a better example than Final Fantasy, some of the games are sequels, but that's only a relatively recent phenomenon. Usually it's a totally different thing. But Zone of the Enders 2 is a sequel to 1. I mean, you're not going to be cripplingly lost if you just start with 2, but there is like a remember this character, and you'll be like, no.
Oh boy. Here's another one. So Pinball Arcade, when it came over to Switch, geez, this may be even under a botched launch kind of situation, but when it came over to the Switch, I think they lost the license to all of their pinball games. All of their licensed pinball games from Williams and Bally and Midway, like a month after it came out.
Ouch.
So you can't even download that anymore. You have to it's just gone. And if you had downloaded it, like you need to you can't purchase any of those tables that they don't have the rights to anymore. Oof. It's really terrible. That's a botched port in a different way that we didn't expect. It's awful, and that company is like basically dead. Like if you ever go to their Facebook page, all they keep saying like they should have access to a lot of other tables, because not all pinball tables were by that company, and they had a partnership with Stern, who's one of the dominant pinball companies still making pinball games. They haven't released a new table in like over I think it's close to a year and a half now. Damn. And so you go to their Facebook page and they're like, "Oh, it's time for another, another competition. We're gonna have like another, thing to get people riled up." And everybody's always commenting like, "Do something! Like, release a new table, you idiots! Like, give us an update! Like what? Like every single week they're like, oh, well, we have another tournament going on." And it's just like, you guys are so dumb. They have like the worst customer will of any company that I've ever seen. It's like really, really bad. As a result, so ugh. Well, I think we covered this topic pretty well. I mean,
good shitty ports.
Yep.
For our European listeners, I'm sorry I didn't focus on the shitty ports to the ZX Spectrum, which you all have had to deal with for a very long time. But I do have a special mention for the port of Contra that is on the ZX Spectrum. Just watch Larry Bundy Jr. Play that, and Guru Larry. There's some good footage of that piece of shit. Definitely.
Nice.
The spread weapon does the same exact function as the machine gun because the upper and lower bullets in the spread gun do not connect with anything.
Oh no!
When you shoot it, so it's effectively the same as the machine gun.
Well, that's some good programming.
Yup. All right, we should move on to our weeklies, guys.
Sure. So we have several comments this time around. So General Ledger is referring back to their question of what kind of mythical creature you would be. And he says, in the comic Modest Medusa, Modest and her sisters deal with the Gorgon curse by putting bags over the snakes' heads. So I guess the curse comes from the snakes in particular. So when in public, they look like they all sport dreadlocks. If that works, then the curse might not be so bad. Yeah, no kidding. Though, I do wonder about some other aspects of it. Do you need to feed the snakes? Are they nourished like any other body part? Do they act independently? Do they have a mind of their own? Do they share the subject's consciousness? Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Do they want to like bite your head?
I know. It's like, you fool.
Are they going to try to struggle out of the bags?
Are they autonomous?
Yeah. So Living Corpse had a few comments. Dante from Devil May Cry was once planned for Soul Calibur. Probably would have nerfed his...
It was featuring Dante from Devil May Cry.
Yeah, Dante from Devil May Cry was once planned on being featured in Soul Calibur. Probably would have nerfed his guns and made him mostly use his fist or his sword. Yeah. I could see that being pretty crazy.
I feel like he would. I feel like they would because Soul Calibur is a melee weapon. Let's say.
Yeah, very few projectiles.
So his guns would probably come out in combos, but it would mainly be a sword. He might switch between different weapons that he might have. Like,
yeah, or maybe like single shots, because Cervantes has a gun, but like
right.
He's not rapid firing. And Living Corpse has a few more things to say. Can we just get a new Darkstalkers already? Yeah, people have been clamoring for that for a while. When's the last one? Like PS1?
I feel like there was I feel like there was another one after that, but
there've been ports, but like, was it PS1?
Yeah. PS1 and Saturn.
Saturn. Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, they're the Chronicle for PS3. That was a compilation. There was a compilation for the PSP.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But no actual new Darkstalkers. So again, when you think about it, the Great Ape from Dragon Ball can be a curse. You turn into a giant monster who shoots beams from your mouth. But Goku and Gohan never received the training Vegeta and Nappa had to retain their sanity in that form. Goku even killed his step-grandfather in that form. Yup. Yeah. It's like a werewolf, but even worse. And then one more from Living Corpse. Vampire depends a lot on the writers. So this is something we covered in the podcast as well. Some stories you can feed off of people without killing or turning someone, or just drink from a blood bag, or find a secret society that offers their blood to you. Others you cannot drink from a blood bag. You must kill a person and feed. Even in Hellsing, they were giving Seraph blood bags, but they're like, you're going to have to step up to people sooner or later, or it's going to be bad for you.
Or it could be like Adventure Time, where you just suck the color red out of things.
That's amusing.
Yeah.
It could be like Bunicula, where you suck the color out of plants.
I remember in Angel, he drank pig blood out of beer bottles quite often. Just to like, it doesn't totally do the job, but it's good enough. You know, that kind of thing.
I remember in the Vampire Chronicle series by Anne Rice, it got to a point where they were able to just take basically a sip of blood from a human, so as not to kill them or turn them.
So seems, just to sustain them.
Yeah, it still seems a little weird. Okay, so Baka Sensei has a comment. If you remember, we had kind of addressed this. It's great that you remember the travesty of the launch for Street Fighter V. It was just bare bones and only ready for Evo. Yup.
Yeah.
He says, I thought you were saving it for this episode. I'm glad that Vice is enjoying Bloodstained, the latest Igavania, after the bad publicity on changing the art. I thought it was going to end like the other Kickstarter, or like other Kickstarter games. But enough talk. Have at you. Also, I just wanted to add that I enjoy the collecting part of those games, and it was the right mechanic to make you return to finish the game over and over. Even on Peace Walker, not only collecting all the R&D items, all the Zeke AI parts. The Zeke was your Metal Gear in that game, and even tags for nothing. On the last episode, I just wanted to add, this is where I was mentioning earlier, the Batman Arkham Knight. So Baka-sensei shouted out the Arkham Knight crappy PC port. And as for Igavania, noun, a gothic exploration-focused action platformer designed by one of the godfathers of the genre, according to his Kickstarter page. That's kind of amusing. I might get it later this year. And Baka-sensei has one more comment. I just wanted to ask, because we had talked about demakes and retro throwbacks last week. I just wanted to ask, does Abobo's Big Adventure count? It's not a demake, because it's not just a character of Double Dragon. So a throwback, maybe. It certainly is a callback to specific Nintendo games.
I would say that's more of a parody game, done in the same style as...
Okay.
But it also delves into other styles.
It does share some gameplay mechanics, though.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say it in one way, but really it's kind of its own celebration of, its goofy humor plus all of Nintendo culture, really.
Mm-hmm. Also Retro City Rampage.
Yeah.
Would that count as a remake?
No, because I think given our criteria, we wanted to have games that were made by their official sources, and then scaled back,
as opposed to being referential like Shovel Knight.
Exactly.
Okay, or like Nex Machina, it's not the actual Robotron 2084 guys or whatever.
Retro City Rampage is kind of like a combination of old GTA from GTA 1 and 2, combined with like GTA. The original Ninja Turtles. So like the overhead bits. I would say it's its own kind of thing, that it's a tribute for sure, but it's not what we were talking about.
A company's own throwback. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, and then Baka-sensei continues in the same post. About the curse, I'll have to agree we need to know what kind of rules are applied for vampires. It's one of the most interesting curses. I guess the only way I wouldn't pick that is if it's Twilight rules. Really? That's like the one way I would pick that, because you're a freaking like invincible at all times, and there's
and
no
you're a
downside.
Sexy, sparkly vampire. Why wouldn't you want to be a sexy, sparkly vampire?
I know everyone made fun of Twilight when it came out, but really, it's by far the best kind of vampire to be.
Bitches love you.
I get. Wooden performances love you. All right, so the last comment we have, Sabrina Hengel says, being a walking Medusa and having your life connected to a tree sound like the least hassle out of all of them. Yeah, this was in reference to, we talked about being a Gorgon, but also being a Hamadryad, where, as far as I know, you have a normal life, but like your life is directly tied to like a particular tree. So then it just depends. Walk around with your eyes and face covered your entire life, or devote your life to protecting some tree. Choose your poison, I guess. Yup.
Yep.
And the question, this week's question, also comes from Sabrina.
Yeah, Sabrina, thank you so much.
This is an intense question. If you had to give up one thing you're good at, or that you like doing, in order to be good at something, or to be able to do something else, what would you exchange and take in its place?
It's
sacrifice some skill or hobby for some different skill or ability. That's a damn tough one, because I am a person of few hobbies. I just go all in on them.
I would like to sacrifice my better than average balance, because I barely ever use that. But I can balance on one foot really well for a long time. I know that's a weird thing, but I could do it. And I would like to have a little bit more willpower when it comes to food.
I was actually going to say willpower not for food, but I was going to say whatever my ability to gain is absolutely going to be motivation.
Yeah.
I would give up my dashing good looks.
Hey, so alive. Perfect. Done.
One man should not have all this beauty.
No, I mean,
I'm keeping it from the rest of the world. I'm being selfish.
I don't know if, like, I guess... I mean, it might be you both had some like serious things that you might want to, like, skills you might want to gain. Like, I'd probably want to gain better understanding and like ways to work with the stock market, I guess. Because it's not like I want to just say I want to be better with money. Like I want to actually have a skill that will make me still have to do some work, I guess.
Sure.
But
Okay.
I don't know if I have any skill that would feel like a fair trade for something like that.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I don't want to be like one of those like bullshit dads that piss off their family. Like, the thing I'm gonna fast on for Ramadan is like a food I don't like eating anyway. Like, okay,
yeah. You mean like on for Lent, giving up something that you don't care about?
For Lent, not Ramadan. Yeah, I'm gonna give up like Brussels sprouts. Wow, good one, Dad. And meanwhile, you have to give up chocolate because I can control what you eat. Like, fuck you. So like I don't want to say
you've had a lot of experience with Lent.
Yeah, I grew up with Lent. Yeah, but like. Yeah, like I don't want to do one of those bullshit things. Like I want to give up reading something that I don't like reading. Like,
maybe I would give up like my. I wouldn't really call it a skill, but like I guess it's something that I'm good at. I might even give up my ability to be on time and early, like everything. That when it's up to just me to be there. So like I will suffer the anxiety of being late to everything. If it means that I'm awesome at the stock market.
That's interesting.
Lotus, you're that same way about like paying people back to the exact penny.
Not that comes up often anymore because now you can PayPal it, but yeah.
You're really bad at like getting yourself all anxious about paying somebody back like a minuscule amount of money that they didn't care about.
Yeah, it's like you owe me like $500.38. Like I'll give the 38 cents too. It's like, all right, thanks.
You'll be very, very motivated, but you'll be really bad with paying people back.
I guess it still seems grossly unfair in my favor.
I mean, we were
don't
college kids at the time when we were doing a lot of that stuff, so like it doesn't even matter anymore.
Well, that's the thing. I'm giving up something that I'm not really giving up. Like, how often am I borrowing stuff from people and having to pay them back? Like the only time that really comes up is like if someone else is paying for the hotel room the one time a year we go to a convention.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think we explored that topic pretty well. Anybody want to get into any final words?
I gotta see if I could do this without bullshit.
Yeah, no, I think this just made me sad that I realized I'm not good at a lot of things.
I think you are.
My problem is like I'm particularly dedicated to only like 3 or 4 things, so giving up one of those is brutal.
I think the thing is too, like I couldn't really think of many things that I'd want to gain. So I guess that's a positive. That I feel like would be a good exchange for any of the things that I feel like I'm good at already. Like, I don't feel like there's many things that I need.
Oh, you know what? Maybe I could give up, like, not my ability to type, but my, like, I'm a really fast typer.
Sure.
Like, I have pretty sick typing efficiency, actually. Like, if you've ever seen, like, my, like House of the Dead, like, or Typing of the Dead Let's Plays.
He's pretty bananas at it.
I'm pretty sick at those games. I could give that up for, like, real motivation to get off my ass and like do a job or like better myself, because like one of my biggest vices by far is sloth. Like I mean, like I know I like when it comes to like my YouTubing stuff, that's a hobby, you know, but I'm pretty neurotic about putting stuff up daily and editing stuff. But like when it comes to real worlds, like you need to get a job and go out there and, you know, put up flyers. Like I'm pretty shit at that, even though I really shouldn't be. So I could sacrifice my sick typing skills for something like that, for like motivation and things that really, really matter, like in long-term consequences.
I wish I had both of your organizational skills. Both of you are really, really particularly good at that. Even probably in my greater span of my life, not just like our friendships and everything, you both are really good at that in terms of like high ranking.
Well, it depends what you mean by organizing, because I have a messy room, but I know where things are. You know, it's one of those cases where Mom walks in, they're like, "What is this disaster?" I'm like, "Don't worry, I got it, Mom."
You're both really good with dates. You're both really good with like exact times, with also getting things done and having them ready for those specific times. Like I've had to learn those things.
I gotcha.
Posting the podcast and things like that, and
gotcha.
working on it is something I learned and I got better over time.
Yeah, I'm not great with dates in general, but when it comes to the aforementioned, like organizing for MagFest or whatever, I'm like, there's only so much time that I have where I can buy badges where they don't go up in price. Who's in? Tell me now, or else, like, you're out, like that kind of thing. So I get all neurotic about that kind of thing, because, like, it's on my shoulders to get this shit done, or everything screws up unless someone else volunteers for it.
Well, Pyro in particular is really organized in almost
every
aspect.
Too organized. Like, it's a curse in a way, because... Well, no, like, the story that I tell a lot of people about how organized I am, one of my friends from high school and I were going to Japan after college, and the night before, I'm like, okay, do I have everything that I need? I was going through everything, and I'm like, you know what? Why don't I get my, like, at the time, it wasn't an iPod, but it was like a MP3 player.
Why don't I get...
No, I had the creative one.
Oh, okay, yeah, those were really good.
But anyway, so I was like, why don't I organize my music, or, like, get that all set up? And then I open it up, and I see that my, I forget what they're called, but, like, the file information, like who the artist is, the track information. I'm like, these are kind of messed up. And then I went down the rabbit hole. So all the track numbers were right, like the album, like the album had how many tracks were on that. All of the songs were the right name and the right artist.
I getcha.
So
that's something that I don't think about.
Let me give a little bit more information too about this, how bad it is, because I had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to catch the flight. I was up till like 3 in the morning organizing my songs.
At that point, you just stay up. You just go.
Yeah, that's the thing, is I'm like, you know what? I've gotten so far, I had to finish this now. And yeah, but
no, not even that. Like, you can't go to sleep at 3 and get up at 5.
Yeah, I took like an hour or 2 hour nap, but it's just like I can be too organized at sometimes.
For something like that, that's something I wouldn't think to do. But if I ever decided, you know what, today's the day, like, I would try doing it all in one shot.
Yeah, I'm really bad in that. Like, it may appear like, just like Lotus said, his room may be disorganized. My room is disorganized because if I ever got the motivation to organize it, I would be way too detailed in the way that I organized it. Like, I would go down such a stupid rabbit hole and never get anything done, because, like, I would be rethinking how I wanted it organized because it wasn't perfect and all this other stuff. So I just kind of let it go, but I know where everything is. You know what I mean?
I had that with Magic the Gathering cards back in the day. Like, now they number their cards. So it's like, you know what, 1 through 100 or however many cards there are, but, like, I collected before they started doing that. So I did it, like, by color, by cost, by, like, type, like creature, enchantment, or whatever, this and that. Like, and I didn't really have a definitive, like, this one should come before that one for this reason. I don't know, it sounded okay in my head, I guess. So I just organized everything like that, so it sucked whenever I would get a card that would go between other cards, so I have to, like, shift everything, and, like, the binder is a pain in the ass.
I remember that in High Fidelity. You remember that movie with John Cusack? And,
I don't think I've seen it.
And Jack Black. Well, he's a collector of vinyl in that, of records. And
that's why it's called. Okay, got it.
Yeah. And he's like, he was talking to his, like, friends, and he owns a record shop, and he's like, I organized my collection once again, and the other guys are like, oh man, how'd you do it? We know you've done it by, like, genre and just straight out alphabetically and by like chronologically at some point. And he was just like, autobiographically, and they were like, what does that even mean? And he's just like, I put them in the order in which I bought them. And so I could find out where I was in my life when I bought when I was listening to each of them.
I kind of get that.
I would be able to remember when I bought things like that.
Well, that's why he organizes them that way, I guess. No, but actually, that reminds me. There was I didn't watch too much Monk, even though it's a really good show. But there was one episode where he was in the waiting room to see his therapist, and he's like, he notices some other guy who's also really like OCD, and I don't like. Both of these guys know each other, and they're not really a fan of each other. And they're both like, "Look at you with your compulsion problem. How embarrassing!" while they're just as compulsive. But like, Monk's trying to organize all the magazines in the office. Like, I forgot who did what, but like one of them tried organizing it chronologically, and he's like, "Look at how neurotic you are. You don't need to do that. All you need to do is just have him like this." And the other was doing it like alphabetically, and it's just like this clashing
OCD.
Obsessive compulsive disorders.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because there are like some relationships that don't get along, with people because of stuff like that. It's ridiculous.
Well, I mean, I could see it if it's like one's OCD, the other isn't, and it's like, you have to stop this. It's interfering with our lives. But this is just both of them like, no, the magazine goes here, not there, and it's just keeps going.
I've seen the situation where the other person is basically brought into their compulsion because the other person won't allow the other person to not.
Oh, I can sort of see that. Like,
their OCD.
Yeah, I can sort of see that. It's not even that the new person has OCD. It's just like, in order to satisfy my partner, it has to be like this. And you're like, what?
Exactly.
So they kind of have it? You're like, oh no.
Yeah, no, it's bad. I've seen that happen. That's not good either.
Yeah.
But yeah,
they're very particular about the way this works or whatever. It's not me; it's my partner. I promise.
Or they're just stressed out in the living environment, and
yes.
because they can't live, like they're afraid of how their partner with the problem will react.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When they get home
even with,
or whatever.
It's similar with hoarders. It's like, why don't we just throw this shit out? It's like, no, you can't.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we went down a long rabbit hole on that one, yeah. But I really want to thank Sabrina for giving us a question, and plenty of and everybody with the comments this time.
Yeah, we had a bunch of comments this time.
Yeah. You guys did a great job. We also got a second question, so we have one in the can, right?
Yeah, Sabrina provided us with 2 questions.
That was fantastic. We really want to thank you for your participation this week. We do need more, though. I don't want to get to the point where we only have like one in the can left. So
Vice, you're gonna have to start asking your own questions.
Or am I? But
I'm sure as hell not.
But if some people could contribute this week, just so we can have a whole bunch, just think of something fun that we can discuss, and we would be very glad for it. This was a good one.
Game related question.
Yeah, this was a good one. Well, that is the show for this week. Thank you for our fans who contributed questions. Please keep us supplied with awesome topics by submitting questions of your own via the YouTube and SoundCloud pages. While there, please give us thumbs ups, likes, and 5-star ratings on iTunes. It helps promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement helps keep the show going. You can also catch us on Tuesdays on our sister podcast, Reactive Consciousness, the in-depth look at this week in our lives. Finally, you can friend me as vysethebold on Steam, PSN, Xbox Live, Switch, Twitter, Battle.net.
And you can follow me on my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince. You can hit me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince. And finally, if you are interested in seeing my videos early, getting in on exclusive live streams, selecting upcoming games for me to Let's Play, or getting involved in a Discord discussion, or just one, in Discord discussions with me and other patrons.
You have to leave after you've had your fill.
Sorry, you've had your one. Goodbye. We will never speak again. But if you're interested in getting involved in Discord conversations with me and other patrons, then perhaps consider. It's fun. Consider swinging by my Patreon account. Yeah. Consider swinging by my Patreon account, which can be found at patreon.com/LotusPrince.
And you can find me as Cloudoid540 or PyroJackFrost on Steam, Battle.net, PSN, other stuff.
Final Fantasy 14?
Final Fantasy 14, I'm neither of those, but you can find me there somehow.
Check him out from afar. All right. Well, we'll catch everybody on Tuesday for another episode of Reactive. We'll catch you then.
Until next time, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.